Well, hi. I'm having some problems here with my internet connection. Anyway, I hope I could just continue with this podcast. I'm very sorry for those of you who have been listening a while ago. I just got cut off. Anyway, tonight I just would like to share with you or talk about the first stage of small group development, which is I would call forming, the forming stage. And I'd like to just talk about the four concerns that you need to be focusing on if you are a small group leader and you want to do this right. So if you are forming a small group, there are four things that you need to be concerned about right at the onset, and you need to discuss this in the group, and you need to take the time to really talk about it until you come to an agreement before really you can do anything. So the forming stage is crucial as the first stage in the small group development. And if you fail in doing this, there are repercussions there. There's a detrimental result to this. So the group would not gel. The group would not be successful. So it's important to do this to form the group well. Okay, and so there are four things I'd like to just talk about right now. The first thing that I believe that you should focus on if you're trying to lead a small group or start a small group, uh, I want to use the acrostic PREP, PREP, and I'd like to talk about four things that I believe you should be focusing on if you want to have a small group that's strong and ready to pursue its journey together. So, starting with letter P, it stands for purpose. That's quite obvious, okay? But I need to reiterate that because a lot of small group leaders don't clarify the purpose of the group right at the onset. They assume that everybody understands. You see, everybody or each person will have a different understanding about what small group is, and it's important if you're a small group leader to clarify what is your purpose for this group, and so that they right at the onset they would also be able to judge for themselves whether they would want to continue in this group. And under this category, of course, is you need to discuss the different types of small groups and uh, what type is your group really. So the last time I talked about the four types of small groups, and maybe you need to just explain that the onset of a small group formation. Um, of course, there is what you call a peer group or just a collection maybe of individuals with no real goal except just to hang out together. And if that is your purpose, then you better clarify it, okay? So that people would not be disappointed or upset because, if it's just a peer group, then, even if you're not really accomplishing anything or even if your relationships are quite shallow, well, everybody knows it's just an ordinary collection of individuals, or maybe you're just coming together during a seminar, just discussing the talk. So the expectations are quite low, of course, because that's the type of group that you have. So you need to clarify that right at the onset. And if it's a task group, that's another type. If it's a task group, then you need to define what task this would be. What is the task of the group? What are the goals of the group? Why is this group being formed? If it's a creative planning group, for example, then that's the task, and everybody should know that this is the task. Or if it's a strategic planning kind of group, then that's the task. Or whatever it is that the group has been given, to do. So at the start, the small group leader needs to clarify, okay, what kind of group are we? You are here in this group, and the purpose of this group is, so you define it, and you explain it, okay? Another type of group, of course, is a nurture group, or a group that is committed to grow together to become a community, a group that is intending to build its relationships beyond the shallow aspect of it to something really deep. And if that is the case, then people should know that so that they would understand that there will be a lot of crucial conversations in this group. There will be heart-to-heart talks and all of that, and it will not be very shallow. It will be, it could even be threatening in some sense or in some cases. So you, the small group leader, it's you know, important for you to just explain what this group is all about. So during the forming stage, this is the first concern, just clarify the purpose of the group. And if it's a team situation, then you need to explain, because this is a team, we both have tasks as well as we are going to focus on the quality of our teamwork, our relationship with each other. So we would go through a process and we would experience conflicts and all of that. But this is all part of the task that we need to accomplish, and we need to agree and have one mind and so forth and so on. So uh, basically, during the formation stage, clarifying the purpose is so essential. You cannot skip that. You cannot just assume that everybody knows what this group is all about. Be attentive to this, because this may take more than just one time. You may have to repeat yourself, because most people don't really get it the first time. If you say, okay, the group that we are forming right now is a nurture group or a community group, and people are thinking, what do you mean by that? What is that? So there has to be a clarification more than once, to just explain to people. You see, this is the kind of group we're trying to form, and this is what it means. Okay, so that people can ask questions and they can clarify, and sometimes they have you know previous baggages from past experiences, and they're bringing it into this kind of new group situation, and that can cause problems. So you may even have to clarify and say, we're not this kind of group, we're this kind of group. Okay, and if we're this kind of group, then we're not that kind of group. So all of that can seem to be trivial for some people, but I find it to be very essential in my experience. A lot of small groups fail because small group leaders do not clarify the purpose of the group. Now, okay, so prep. Okay, P is purpose. R is requirements. R is requirements. By that I mean to say, you, the small group leader, should explain to the group, this is what is required to be in this group. And some people think that that might be too legalistic or whatever. But really, the first task of the group, in order for the group, especially during the forming stage, the first task of the group is really to define its boundaries. And if it doesn't do that, then the group will be in danger of disintegrating. So it might look appealing, or it might sound appealing rather, for you to say, well, everybody can be in this group. And then that's really a formula for failure, because then people don't really know, what does it mean to be in this group or not in this group? Who is in this group anyway? Now, for those who are not really committed in the group, that may sound quite, uh, enticing, if I may say so. But those who are committed in the group, that's demoralizing. That's like, hey, I'm going to give in my 100% here, and I don't know exactly who's with me. Who are we anyway? So just like in a sports team, for example, there's a clear boundary. Who can be part of the team? Maybe you have to, in order to be part of the team, then you need to do this, or you need to go through this first, or there are certain conditions. You need to practice with us, and so forth and so on. You need to take care of your physical health, for example. I don't know. I'm just coming up with those ideas. But anyway, so even sports team or any kind of group that seeks to last more than a few days needs to define its boundaries. It needs to clarify exactly what does it mean to be in versus out. What does it mean to be inside versus outside? And so that's the second thing that you, the small group leader, needs to just talk about with the group. These are the requirements. You know, these are the conditions. These are the things that would make you part of this group. Maybe there are certain qualifications. Maybe there are certain things that you need to go through first. Um, like interviews, whatever. So the requirements must be stated up front and clarified so that everybody is not taken by surprise. Everybody knows, hey, this is what it means to be in this group. Okay, so if you try to think about some successful groups in your experience, that that's the main thing that really sets apart those groups. They know exactly who they are, and they know exactly what it means to be part of that group. That makes a group or any group really strong right at the onset. Okay, so prep. P is purpose, R is requirements, okay? And E stands for expectations. And this, okay, turns the table around. And this is when you actually would like to ask each and everyone, what are your expectations in this group? So you've got, the first two, purpose and requirements. Basically, it's coming from you or the organization, and you are clarifying it, and maybe you're negotiating it at the same time. But you want to turn the table around and you want to ask them now, what are you expecting in this group? And you need to hear them out, and you need to understand what are the things that they are looking forward to or expecting or desiring to experience in this group situation. And this will give you a chance to know where they're coming from, but at the same time, as a small group leader who represents the organization, you will be able to either affirm and say, yeah, we are going to do that. That's exactly part of our intentions. Or maybe you will have to clarify and say, I'm sorry, I don't think we can accomplish that. Perhaps this may not be the right group for you. Okay. Now, doing this at the start is actually more loving than not doing it or not saying it until later on, and there's an infraction or a violation or there's a problem. Then you will have to bring it up and say, actually, we are not allowing this to happen. And so that can really cause problems. So right at the beginning, during the forming stage, you need to just talk about that. What are your expectations in this group? What do you want? What do you want to experience or to happen in this group? Okay. And you, the small group leader, of course, you also need to share your own personal expectations. And this goes beyond the formal requirements of being in the group. You want to talk about the things that you desire, the cooperation that you're looking forward to, and so forth. And maybe you can also ask them, like, what are you expecting from me as the small group leader? What do you want me to do for you? Or how would you want me to lead this group? And that kind of engagement and interaction would lead toward a very strong group beginning or group start. And so you remember that you need to talk about expectations, and some of the expectations actually may not be voiced out immediately because maybe some people are afraid to really voice it out. So you need to encourage them. You need to tell them, hey, if we're going to be successful in this small group, we need to be honest enough. And let's just talk about our expectations. Because more often than not, the reason why small groups fail or get into too much conflict right at the beginning is because they have a lot of uncommunicated, unstated, unclarified, unclear expectations from one another, from the leader, etc., etc. So, okay, that's my advice for you. Okay, if you want to be able to form a group, a strong group, right from the very beginning, you need to just talk about everybody's expectations, including your own. Okay. So, for those of you who are just joining in, I'm just talking about the 4 essential things that you need to be concerned about during the forming stage of a small group, or right at the very beginning. And by that, I don't mean to say just the first time you meet, okay? Because the forming stage can last for several meetings actually, for as long as there is no coordination, for as long as it seems like people are not fulfilling whatever it is that is required of them, then you are at that stage, regardless of what you say or what you think. You are in the forming stage. For as long as there's no coordination at all, like you're having problems just getting this group, on track, or the group is not gelling together, then it's still in the forming stage. So, four things we're talking about, the four things that you need to just clarify, discuss with the group. First is purpose. You need to discuss the purpose of the group. What is it all about? What type of group is this? And then you're going to talk about letter R, requirements. So that's the acrostic PREP. Purpose, requirements. Requirements would be, okay, uh, what is required to be in this group, versus being out of it. Okay, if you want to be in this group and if you want to remain in this group, here are the requirements. Here is what it takes. Here is what you need to do. And then letter E would be expectations, and this will be turning the table around and asking them, okay, what do you expect from the group, from me as your small group leader, or from the organization itself? What are your expectations? Let's lay it down on the table. Let's talk about it. Some of the expectations might be right on track, and you would probably affirm that and say, way to go, that's exactly what we're going to do. I can assure you, we can meet that expectation. Or you can actually say, you know what, that's an expectation, it's good, but I don't think we can do that in this group or in this kind of group. Okay, so maybe they were expecting, like, I'm expecting you to really minister to my needs, to really care for me, to be my shepherd, my friend. And you're thinking, you know what, this is a task group. We may not have the time or the energy to really just, take care of you in that sense. So I'm sorry, maybe you're not yet ready for this group. That kind of crucial talk and, courageous conversation is really essential for a group to form well right at the very beginning. Okay, so P is purpose, R would be requirements, and then E would be expectations, and then the last P, so we're looking at prep as the acrostic here. The last P would be procedures, okay? In other words, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. So from here on, or for example, we are going to be meeting every Wednesday or every Friday at this time, and when we come together, this will be the way we're going to do it. This will be our agenda. This will be the typical way that we're going to go about our meeting. So you need to bring this, or you need to be ready for this, or you need to know this. And we would probably meet twice a month or weekly, or every quarter we're going to pause and reflect and take a retreat. So in other words, you explain the procedures of how it's going to be done, how the group is going to fulfill its purpose. So purpose, requirements, expectations, and then procedures. These are the four things that you, the small group leader, needs to be clarifying, talking about, discussing with this small group during the forming stage. And it may not just be a one-time thing. You may have to go back to it over and over again. Just clarify those four things. Remember, prep, PREP, okay, purpose, requirements, expectations, and then procedures, right? For procedures, you need to probably negotiate, work it out. Maybe initially you're thinking it's going to be a Wednesday meeting, but after talking about it, it's not feasible. It's going to be a Saturday meeting, or maybe it's going to be part online, part face-to-face, a hybrid kind of group. Maybe it's going to be through Skype or whatever, so everybody needs to have Skype, or something like that. Okay, so procedures. So those are the four essential things that you need to be discussing with the group in order to form well. Okay, one last time, PREP, purpose, talk about the purpose of the group. R, requirements. E, expectations. P, procedures. So talk about those things, discuss them, come to an agreement. Make sure that everybody's in sync, that you have one mind, one heart, in order for you to move to the next stage, which is the adjusting stage, because a lot of these things that you talk about will be challenged in that next stage, and we're going to talk about that. So most of the time during the forming stage, There's a lot of intellectual agreement, even verbal agreement maybe, but the heart is not yet there, the commitment is not yet there, you know, and you will begin to see this as the group goes into the next stage of its development, called the adjusting stage, where differences would come out, you know, there will be uh, challenges that would begin to appear, because once you begin to, you know, meet and work together, obviously the proximity of one another would tend to cause friction, and there will be problems, and so we'll talk about that the next time. Okay, so one more time, what are the four things that you need to be discussing and talking about and coming to an agreement together in a small group during the forming stage? Remember, prep. PREP. First, you discuss purpose, you clarify that, then you talk about requirements. What does it mean to be in the group? What does it mean to remain in the group? And what would take them out of the group? Okay, so requirements. And then E would be expectations, expectations of one another. This may be more fluid. This may be more focusing more on emotional things. Okay, like, you know, I expect that you guys would be respectful, you know, or I expect that you would, if you're going to correct me about anything, that you would do so in a kind way, for example. So a lot of this might be worked out, maybe even on writing. You may have to write it down. So some experts suggest having a group covenant. Okay, now group covenant is okay, but it's not really necessary if the group is at a certain level of trust for each other, if they're mature. But really, if the group is probably very immature or inexperienced, covenant might be a good thing because you have something written down. But anyway, I'm not really into that. But just in case you know, you want to have that, like a written down covenant or agreement of expectations and all of that, I think that's a good thing. Okay, that would be helpful. So purpose, requirements, expectations, and then finally procedures. And procedures, of course, would be the most malleable or changeable aspect of the group formation, because as you talk about the procedures, some of this would be changed as a result of the actual uh, activity of the group or work of the group, okay, if I may say so. So there you go, okay. I hope that's helpful for you. PREP, purpose, requirements, expectations, and procedures. So thanks everyone for listening, and sorry about the internet connection. If you were listening a while ago and then I had to repeat myself, I apologize. It's more fun in the Philippines, so we're having this internet connection right now, problem rather. So join me every Monday. I go live every Monday. I talk about various leadership concerns. This past few weeks, I've been talking about leading small groups or small groups in general. And I think we're now in part 3, if I'm not mistaken. And so join me again next time. We're going to continue our discussion. We're going to talk about the second stage of the small group development. Okay, and also the key transition point, which is coordination. So we're going to talk about that next Monday. So I usually go live at 9 p.m. every Monday right here in my Facebook, you know, personal news feed. And join me, like the video, share the video. Thanks, you know, everyone. Good night. I hope that you will have a pleasant rest and a pleasant sleep. So God bless. Thank you. Bye.